Rookies, of course, massive part of the equation in SuperCoach, getting the right cheapies in your team. And the Phantom has been working hard on that all summer. I haven't heard a lot of from Dan Batten. I'm not sure where he's been, but Phantom carrying him. So he's helping us out. But without going through too many names, because I know the Rookie Bible's up and has plenty in there. So go and definitely check that out. But who are the standouts? Some of these expensive guys that Tim talked about, the high draft picks like a Riley Sanders at the Bulldogs, Colby McKercher, and obviously Harley Reid, I think going to be very popular picks. But any others that we should be looking at maybe down in the, we love a 102K or a 117K type cheapie?
Firstly, don't listen to Adam Simpson trying to talk down Harley Reid. I think his quote was, I don't think he'll play every game. I wouldn't have thought. But, they just have to play that kid if he's ready. He's probably the guy that might get subbed in and out a couple of times. But 202K, have to pick him in the forward line given what he's done as a junior, can play anywhere, might probably start a halfback a bit like the rookies have done in the previous years. Sean Manor, Dan's Batten boy from down there at the Cattery, mature age, plucked out of the VFL. Patrick Dangerfield likes him, and we know people listen to Paddy Dangerfield down there. So hopefully there's a spot for him in the side there. Other top-end guys as well. I know you mentioned how you're talking about we like these bottom-end players, but we might learn more about those types over the next couple of weeks. But you've got your Nick Watsons, your Zane Dersmers, your high-end guys who are probably going to feature early in 2024. But again, probably in the forward line, might be a bit up and down in terms of what their scoring delivers. So your top-end rookies are probably more for your midfield. We'll touch on those guys at some point. But Finn McRae, another McRae at the Pies too. Can he finally break him? No Taylor Adams there this season, 152K. He's another one we hope to see through the pre-season games. Jacob Constanti, another guy from Sydney. We know he could be the one responsible for cutting Callum Mills's season in half for that Mad Monday wrestle, but he can play as well. Small forward, I know, but tackles a lot. Dan Batten always talks about what Jacob Constanti can do pressure-wise, and we know that helps the bottom end of SuperCoach scoring. Floor helps that floor when you're not getting as much of the footy. So a few names, top-end guys are standing out at the moment in terms of price. That doesn't mean a few other guys will pop up. You've got a Reef McInnes from the Pies who, we don't love the idea that he's going to maybe fill Dan McStay's role in a different way, different type of player. Tall, got a good leap, long arms. Might not expect too much in terms of points-wise, but 123K. The list always looks good before games play, before team sheets come in. So we have to consider all these guys for the bench, because I know Tim's got a list of 21 rookies he thinks going to play in the forward line from round one, but I wouldn't bank on that being, we might get half of that, I think, come the start.
Can you share a couple of those, Tim, who hasn't been mentioned yet that you think might jump up and be a good pick for us? Just a couple.
Thanks for the optimism, Phantom. Good to surely at this time of year.
Speak the truth here. Speak the truth.
It's interesting to hear what Phantom said about Dersmer and Watson as well, because they were two of my first picked when Team Picker opened. But I think, like a lot of people, based on what it sounds like their roles are going to be, I've called on paying almost 200K for those two. So I was sort of glad in a way to hear Phantom say that, you could probably get away with fading those two, unless, of course, they come out and bag 3 or 4 on debut, and then you might have to be looking for a way to get them in. But just a couple others that, Fant didn't mention. Jeremy Sharp seems to be going really well over at the Dockers, so I think he'll be pretty popular for midfield benches. I had him in my team a couple of years ago when he went on a decent run, sort of later in a season for Gold Coast, and we barely saw him after that. But sounds like he's probably going to take Liam Henry's spot on a wing. Another guy that I like, Al, and I know you and Swizz both Mad Tigers, but we won't see him sort of straight up. But I think sort of round 2 or round 3 might come off suspension is Tyler Sonsi, who's 150K in the forward line. I think he'll probably get plenty of opportunities this year under Adam Uze, and The word is that he was pretty decent in the last intra-club hit out that the Tigers had. So he's one that I'm probably targeting after he plays a couple of games. I think he might be sort of one of those first rookie downgrades. Maybe he's one that can give you the cash to, say, get Nick Dacos in after 5 or 6 rounds. But the interesting one for me, and it's going to come down to selection really in round 1, is and it might sort of dictate the way that we go with the rest of our teams, is whether Toby Conway is the first choice ruckman for the Cats. He's 180k and apparently having a really good preseason, and the same to be said for Jordan Sweet as well. Like the last thing that we heard from Ken Hinkley was that they're still tossing up whether to go with Sweet and then sort of Finlayson as the backup, or maybe to go with Soldo and someone like Dante Vicentini and maybe have 2 ruckmen playing in tandem. So, yeah, really interested to see what the Cats and Port Adelaide do, because that might throw up another option of going with Brodie Grundy and maybe a cheaper option at R2 as well.
Yeah, and I think this year, there's certainly merit in paying a little bit more in the ruck for your third ruckman. Like, often we just get the cheapest guy available because we think, we're never going to need him. And maybe you can use them for a loophole or something like that. But with all these buys early on, we're going to have plenty of loopholes. And the amount of money you can make from a bench ruckman if they're playing, which we've seen from guys like, Samson Ryan last year, or Kieran Briggs obviously went bananas. But then also to provide the cover during the buys, as you mentioned, when a Gorn or a Grundy might be missing, could be super valuable. So, yeah, if you can find a ruckman who's playing, I think I'd be prepared to pay, 180k or 150k if I had to. A couple of quick names I'd throw up would be in the back line. Nick Caulfield, high draft pick from St Kilda, is now at the Bulldogs. If he gets a game and he's in the best 22 and he's only 123k, I think he could score pretty well. And Marty Hoare, another one, mature ager who was on Melbourne's list a few years ago and scored pretty well for us as a rookie. I think he averaged around the 70 mark. Then I think might have done his knee and got delisted, but he's had a couple of really good years in the VFL and now he's back on Melbourne's list. So we'll just have to see what their team looks like. But with a few injuries and maybe Christian Salem has been talked about moving up into the midfield. Hibbard's retired, so there might be a spot there for him. And obviously Josh Gibcus at the Tigers back from his year off with hamstring problems. He's actually cheaper than he was in his rookie year a couple of years ago when he was a decent pick for us. So if he's in Richmond's round 1 team and the fact that I think Noah Bolter is being talked about moving to the forward line to cover some holes down there should give him a pretty good role. They obviously like him at punt road. So if he's over those injuries, he's definitely one that I'd be happy to pick. But
Marty Hall averaged 88 his first 9 games. Well, added 300k to his price tag. I'll
be stunned if he goes straight into that Melbourne team. I hope he does, but yeah. I just can't see it happening personally. What about like a few pods, Al, before we move on? Bailey McDonald is a guy that I don't think a lot of people know about. 170k defender, playing halfback for Hawthorn, and we know how profitable a role that's been for guys like Jarman Impey and a few others in that mould in the past. So he's one I would flag to keep an eye on in pre-season as well. And I think in the last team of yours that I saw, Al, you might have had, like while we're talking Demons, Bailey Laurie sitting on your forward bench as well. He's 125k and getting a fair bit of midfield time for the Demons as well. So he's one. And the other that has come from a completely left field, 133k forward, is Alex Sexton, who's gone to halfback under Damien Hardwick. And Touk Miller was talking him up on one of the radio stations down here in Melbourne the other day for his sort of speed and his ball use coming out of halfback as well. So maybe he'll be one that will completely come out of the blocks phantom and surprise us as a forward turn defender.
Jim, I think he'll be a Daniel Rioli version 2. We know what Dimmer did with him and move him from the forward line to the back line. So definitely, be all over that. A couple I'll just throw in too, Al, is Dawson from North Melbourne. Obviously, North Melbourne have lost Ben Mackay to Essendon, so they're trying to fill a role. A lot of people jumping on Toby Pink. I think he's a little bit further behind a couple of the other options that they're looking at. So I'd have him on the watch list. And 2 of the more expensive forward rookies in Matty Tabner and Jai Cully. Cully's come back from injury a lot quicker than what was expected. We know, obviously, he was that first pick in the mid-season draft a couple of years back, so wouldn't be surprised now that he's back running and playing match sim, could be their first round. And if Tabner's body's right, he's the logical centre-half forward or full forward at Fremantle, and at 172k, all he needs to do is clunk a couple marks, kick a couple goals, and he could be the Oscar Allen from last year.
Yep, Callan Dawson from the Roos there, fancy Freako favourite. Our man from Champion Data likes him good intercept numbers. Zach Reed, 123K from the Bombers as well. We're talking intercept guys, injured players. In your Josh Gibcus mould in terms of the footy he's missed, but so highly rated down there at Essendon. So he could come in and push. And one more to finish off, one of my men from over here in SA, Matty Roberts, who has pushed back to half-back. We've spoken about it across the pre-season. We like guys who go to half-back now. We don't really care about more midfield time anymore. It's all about the guys moving to half-back, and Matty Roberts came on, finally got his body up to where it needed to be at times last year, and we know he can win the footy. So if he can slot into Sydney's half-back line, 156K, or at least somewhere there on a wing. We saw him play out here in Gatherbound on a wing, 156K in the midfield. Champion Data, not a record holder, but close to it as a junior as well. So one to watch, hopefully, in the preseason games.